Most teachers can get their students to like them, but not everyone can get their students' attention and trust like I have. Ultimately, though, it's about teaching them, and I can. I would put my students' work as freshmen up against any in the school. My students work for me. They know that I will provide them with meaningful assignments and authentic assessments. In fact, my students' classwork was praised as exceptionally rigorous 2 weeks ago, while at the same time I was criticized for pushing my students beyond what the team had planned. The work my students produced and the skill set they developed was a secondary consideration to the fact that my classroom and the adjacent classroom were not in lockstep that day. Another example of my meticulous planning and rigorous instruction is illustrated here. The counseling department asked if I would be interested in teaching upperclassmen next year. The rationale was they want our upperclassmen to experience another teacher with a strong process and product-oriented approach to teaching writing as they prepare for college. ACHS also intends, as per the agreement with the community, to offer courses to students through Front Range Community College. As an adjunct professor at Front Range, I am well aware of what our students need to be able to do in order to be successful at that level. And given that I am the only one in the department qualified to teach those courses at Adams City High School through Front Range, you still believe this non-renewal was in the best interest of our students? But you know that I form positive, productive relationships with my students, and you are aware that I am instructionally sound as I leverage those relationships into academic effort and progress. In fact, in February, 2 Adams City High School teachers requested a professional day to observe colleagues with effective classroom management and instructional delivery. You advised these teachers to observe me. My evaluations from last year would support your belief in me. Oddly, my very strong evaluations from the 2009-2010 school year were followed by mediocre evaluations this year. But let's dig deeper. The TEL survey revealed, among other things, that 86% of your staff believe that evaluations are unfair and subjective. I will use a single item on my evaluation to demonstrate this subjectivity and abuse of evaluative power. It is essential for teachers to be data-informed and aware of their students' scores. In preparation for my evaluation in October, I collected and printed disaggregated data by class and MAP scores. I then identified students as green, yellow, and red, each according to the different goal strands which identify their most critical needs. You can imagine it is frustrating to then be told by my evaluator that this data is irrelevant. Instead, she asked for student work, which is not generally what professionals mean by the use of data in the planning phase. I was marked partially meets on the data standard. At the very least, the data I collected and the way that I use it should at least meet standards, according to the evaluation form. It was equally frustrating when 6 months later, the director of secondary education handed me that same set of data that I had brought into my meeting with my evaluator and told me this is the appropriate data to use. My evaluator deemed that data irrelevant during my evaluation, and yet the director of secondary education asked her staff to use this very data set. This is why so many of your staff feel that the evaluations are fraudulent. I understand data. My assistant principal and evaluator does not, and this bothers her. She routinely confuses personal with professional matters, and I believe it affects how she evaluates. It doesn't matter that I was 6 months ahead of the district curve in bringing and using the appropriate data. She had already decided that I would be marked partially meets. This is a transparent case of her desire in my first evaluation of 2010-2011 to establish a reason to non-renew me. This same evaluator had her evaluations called into question at the board meeting in 2010. She ignored my frequent demonstrations of proficiency, and a true professional would listen to me discuss my statistical data combined with my rare, deep understanding of my students and applaud my efforts, push me to grow professionally in ways that build my leadership capacity. A true professional would acknowledge when a teacher of theirs meets standards. My analysis and integration of data into the planning phase is good enough for Harvard University's teacher education program and meets the expectations of Adams14 Director of Secondary Education, but is somehow not good enough for my evaluator? How many other employees at Adams City High School are not receiving proper and appropriate evaluations? Again, according to the TEL survey results, 92% of teachers at ACHS are uncomfortable raising issues or concerns which are important to them. 92% uncomfortable raising issues to ACHS administration. And given the quality of your staff, I would guess that those concerns are essential to the success and well-being of our students. It is frightening to think how many student-centered questions go unasked because the ACHS administration has created a culture of fear and paranoia. Believe me, as many have said before, I was generally reluctant to come up here and present this information tonight. As a passionate educator, all I want to do is teach my kids. I'm not thrilled to be standing here in front of you, but when improper evaluations are taking effective teachers away from our students, then yes, a little integrity is better than any career. We're here tonight because the principal of Adams City High School had the opportunity to do the right thing for our students and chose not to. Members of the board, Superintendent Chandler, community, thank you for allowing me this time. I realize that this is not the forum to discuss every instance where student needs were superseded by administrative preference at the high school, but now, having briefly touched upon a couple of professional experiences which illustrate the sentiments of the TEL survey, I would like to now return to the two goals of the board that I highlighted earlier and remind you how they pertain to our students. As a district, we must recruit and maintain the best qualified and well-trained workforce so that we can ensure all students are at or above grade level. I am absolutely among the best qualified and well-trained teachers, and I am needed to get our students at or above grade level. In closing, there is much to question in regards to the ACHS's administration's evaluation process and its staffing decisions. These decisions affect the careers of professionals and are detrimental to our students. I request that the board, on behalf of all of its students, its staff, and the community, remove the administration from Adams City High School while also providing accountability safeguards for the future. I realize that this is an extreme request. I do not make it lightly, but this is a defining moment for this district, and I love this district. The conditions at the high school are extreme, as is the predicament our students face, and sometimes extreme actions are needed to do what is right. Your decision last year overturned several non-renewals, but your decision this year will shape the district for years to come. Yesterday, I submitted my letter of resignation, but if the board believes I am well-trained and highly qualified, as my students and colleagues believe, then I will be more than happy to rescind my letter of resignation, and I would be thrilled to come back and teach my kids again next year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
May I approach the bench?